Calling all film fanatics and culture lovers, it's showtime. Cultures and Communities Fest is coming soon, both virtually and in person, to a movie palace near you. CCF features a full week of candid conversations, moving pictures, and unforgettable events, all focused on holistic health and social wellness. Come celebrate culture with your community this September 6th through the 12th. Go to mkefilm.org/CCF for more information.
Hello and welcome to the 2021 Cultures and Communities Festival presented by Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin. I'm Liz, the programmer at Milwaukee Film, and I'm so honored to welcome you to this Q&A with Arlene, Dulcie, Kyoko, and Anissa behind the film's Hindsight shorts. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi. I would want to start by asking you guys, how did the Hindsight shorts come together? Was it your films first, or did they outsource you guys? Was it, were you chosen as directors to be a part of the short film, or did you already have the films together and then put them together as a whole? Anyone can go ahead.
I can jump in. I mean, I think it's kind of a combination, but from my understanding, they had the funding for it and they approached different filmmakers to apply for this project. And so we all submitted, like a short treatment and were selected. So for me, I wasn't working on anything, but I had an idea, and I think they were all maybe in various stages of concepts when they approached us last fall.
Yeah, I would say that very similarly. I think for all of us, it was you got an invitation to apply, and then we had to submit, and then they selected 6 filmmakers to support our films. And my film, it was an idea that I had, but I hadn't really fully fleshed it out yet. It was something I was like, I'd like to talk about our choir and just life during COVID and how challenging it's been. And so it just gave an opportunity when the Hindsight came up to be able to do something about it. So.
Yeah, I am also wondering, like Kyoko said, what stages were you in your films? Was it like an idea brought to you and you just came together and constructed the film? Or did anybody have footage already and have this idea? Or was it like start, finish in the pandemic? Boom.
So in my case, I have the idea to make something about comedores sociales and that movement. And I wrote to somebody in Firelight Media, and they told me about the Hindsight initiative. And it was a very nice, it was great to hear that, because it was the first time that Puerto Rico was included in this kind of initiative. So because this is all the stories, all the documentaries, the stories are from the South. And they include Puerto Rico, and we are like as I always say, that we are like a region on our own. But it was great to be included in this, and I already have the intention of making something on Comedores Sociales and Giovanni, and it was perfect. It was a perfect timing for me to reach out, and that this was it was available for Puerto Rican filmmakers also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I was at like a point where I was still trying to figure out, like, the treatment I had submitted was different from the film I ended up making. And thankfully, Firelight and Real South and Cam were so willing to work with me as I sort of worked through these different, topics. And it was just like a really collaborative process. So it was really cool to be able to go back and forth with them about different ideas and different ways to make the film. And ultimately it worked out. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think any of us had, I mean, until we got greenlit on the funding, had really done and started filming anything for our shorts that, came together for this one project. I did film a little bit thinking, well, maybe I'll get it, but prior to it, but like really not diving in. And it was a really quick turnaround too. So I didn't really dive in until after we found out we had the funding.
Yeah, it was a very quick turnaround. And for me, I was so grateful because had this opportunity not have come around, there's no way I would have made anything during, especially at the height of the pandemic, fall, winter, 2020. Even now it's still a struggle, but, when I was approached with the idea, I knew exactly what I would make because the only thing I could make was my experience of struggling to be an artist, to be a mother, to just get through this pandemic. So it was like, I knew exactly what I was going to make, and just to have the funding and the support to make it, without it, there's no way I would have made it. So I was really grateful.
That's interesting. So you think the pandemic definitely changed how you created art itself? I guess these specific pieces. I'm guessing. I guess I'm asking. How is this work different being birthed from a pandemic to your usual videography work that you guys do as filmmakers?
It was definitely different. I mean, part of the project for Hindsight itself is that it had to have some sort of connection to the pandemic and race or economy. So I think that was, part of it was the subject matter. But of course, even just trying to film during a pandemic when, you're having to try to be COVID safe and shoot people and do interviews. And I really had to adjust the way that I thought about making a film just because we had to, because of the pandemic. And also because I was making a film about a choir that couldn't sing together during a pandemic and we weren't able to actually be in, space together and sing together. So just the whole process was really different. And even the editing process, I wasn't sitting down because I worked with an editor. I wasn't sitting directly down with my editor to edit, it was all virtual. So it would, there were definitely more challenges trying to do something virtually. And also just like you, I am a mom and had kids and living at home and trying to do this at the same time. So.
Yeah, seriously. I'm a filmmaker also, and I was brought on as a producer for something that was filmed earlier this year, and it was a narrative piece, which is different from you guys. And I don't know, it was like in a school, and I'm like, well, we just need to cut everything, and everybody needs to have masks on. Like, just cut the script, everything, like. How did on set go? Because films were made. I mean, a lot of stuff that I've seen from you guys. Actual, cell phone footage, or like, oh, this was filmed in March. So like on set, were there any like strong things keeping you away? I wish Soar was here. They had a really interesting piece. I think she was on the plane, and then her mom didn't get to go with her, but then there were words that kind of like explained it all. She didn't film it all, but there were just words that were explaining it. So I think this is all just rearranging how film can just show up. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think he had to really adapt quickly. I think a lot of us had to, as the story was evolving and changing with what was happening in real time. And for me, like, I kind of embraced this challenge of the limitations of COVID, and it kind of became an aesthetic choice in my film. And even the name, We Stay in the House, came from literally being stuck in the house. And then, I made the decision early on that I really wanted to get some shots through windows and through doors and being outside shooting in. So, and one of my, Tiffany, one of the protagonists, she had a really bad case of COVID. She did not want anyone in her house. So, in the beginning it was a limitation, but it became an aesthetic choice that I really grew to love. And like,
So we shot all of her stuff from outside of her house through the window, and just mic'd her so you'd hear what was going on inside, but we're shooting from outside. And so that was meant to convey kind of sort of not really fully being able to understand what's happening inside, that there are all these like sort of private unseen challenges that are happening in everyone's homes.
Yeah, it's also really respectful and sympathetic for you and us to, just respect people's boundaries in a time like now. It's really important. I also want to ask, what do you think you guys are going to do with your film Standing Alone versus how you think they play together? Do you think they are stronger together? Or what are you guys gonna do with your films?
Well, I think for me, like we're doing a really big release around just like Birmingham as a whole, just because it was something that I felt like Bloods did such a good job of contextualizing so many things that were happening within Birmingham over like 2020, and like a lot of people weren't really saying it out loud. So I really want to sort of have that be on display for the city. So I'm really excited to like, hold some events and, be at local film festivals and like really engage with the people who were like kind of in the space with him while all of the protests and things were happening.
In my case, we already did this screening in Comedores Sociales because they are celebrating their 8th anniversary. So we use that event to present the film, and all the community around Comedores Sociales was there. A lot of people that were in the film were there in the event, and it was very beautiful because it gave also the opportunity for Giovanni, my subject, the character of the film, to explain the people there what's this experience for him. He's a very introvert person. He's a very well-spoken person, but he's very introvert. He makes the work that he does, but he's very introvert, and he says like, well, everybody saw me naked, like kind of, I give my heart to, I say everything that I have in my heart. So it was very emotional and very special to have that opportunity to, show the film to the community around Comedores Sociales.
I was going to say there are advantages. I mean, all of us will do things separately with our films, and I think we had all talked about doing that. But the great thing about them being shown as a collective is that you get people who may be coming in to see one particular film, but then they get to watch the other. So I know a lot of people that I invited to come. They're like, oh, I got a chance to watch all of them. So I think that as a filmmaker, with having 6 films coming together, that you can kind of cross-pollinate, and people who may be looking for one particular film then can watch the others. So I think that is an advantage to being part of a collective, especially when you have a short. So, yeah.
Definitely. I think I also want to talk about maybe not the bad, but the good things that we like about these online relationships. Dulcie, I know you had choir practice online, and I'm more like, how are these fulfilling? Me personally, with all the film festivals and stuff, I feel like I've found a place in my room watching these festivals, and I'm like super grateful that a lot of these festivals are going online, because I don't have to go out there. I get to see so many films that I would have seen because they only do in person. So I do think there's some benefits to this, and I'm wondering, where can we take this with the end of the year?
Yeah, I think for me, like I've been able to sort of connect in different film festivals that I like didn't even know that, like, I don't know, I feel like I've just met a lot of people just from sitting like right here. And it's really weird to even say, like, I don't know. I think it's cool to be able to have this space, just because like I know in like normal times this would not be a thing for me. Like this whole process of making the film and connecting and networking was something that I don't think I could have foresaw. I don't think anybody could foresee, but um, I've just been really grateful for like the connections I've been able to make through the fact that we have all these festivals going on online. Like, I don't know, it just makes it feel a little more accessible. And I think for me as like a new filmmaker, that's really just, it's like a breath of fresh air to know, okay, like it doesn't feel like that far out of reach. So I really like that about the pandemic, I guess.
Yeah, I think the keyword that you said, accessibility, because I we can access other festivals usually that you would have to go and attend in person, and we can attend festivals everywhere, and it's also a little less expensive, right? Because you're not also paying to fly and so forth to these places. And with the virtual environment, I mean, it was the thing that we talked about, like we were able to still connect and acquire even though it wasn't in person. It was still more challenging. I still prefer being in person in a lot of cases. I mean, the virtual environment's fine. I do think from what we've experienced, we'll continue to, I think, have these hybrid spaces where there'll be in person and virtual spaces. And so I think that's great, because we are able to connect now with people from across the planet, like not just in one space. So we don't have the limitations of geography anymore. But I do like seeing people in person as well. So I still miss that. So,
I think it's weird that I haven't met y'all in person. Like,
I know.
I feel like I know y'all.
So
No
Yes.
way.
yeah,
It's really bizarre.
Haven't like shared the same space before.
No, most of us have never met in person. Yeah.
We are going to make like a screening in Puerto Rico. That's our goal. That everybody can see.
we're coming to Puerto Rico.
This is 2021. This is what it looks like. Yeah, I think also each of your films tackle the pandemic, but also tackle us being in a revolution right now, in the middle of a revolution. I think it's interesting how you kind of just added that in there, but as something small when they're both happening at the same time. I guess I want to talk about how how you guys decided to add in the Black Lives Matter movement, or just any revolutionary aspect in your film.
I don't think my film could have not been about what was happening racially across the United States, because for me, that was just something that was a center of what was happening, and for me, like emotionally, just seeing everything going on. And I also was just frustrated because I couldn't get out and physically do stuff in the pandemic that I would, like normally would really like to do. So it was just trying to find another way to address and tackle like the frustrations that I was feeling and that people in the choir were feeling about this. Because normally we would get together in person and have these conversations, and then also be in the community doing things. And so it was really hard. It was kind of like, how do we still do that in a different way? Like, how do we address these things? Because our focus in our choir is all about race unity. And so when we have and dealing with racism and these racial issues, so it kind of was pivotal. It's such a pivotal moment of what was happening in 2020. And I also don't know if we didn't have the pandemic, if people would have sat still enough to really have this awakening that we saw, where people were really tuned into what was happening.
Yeah, I think for me it was really interesting because like Birmingham already has a history, a civil rights history that's like very storied. But for me, my biggest thing was sort of figuring out whether that narrative still holds true given all of the things that have happened in 2020 and all the protests and all of the ways that people are starting to speak up and, acknowledge the fact that things haven't really changed as much as we would like to say, even though it's like our cool tag that we put on everything when people come to Birmingham. So for me, it just felt like a really unique opportunity to talk about, what is the history versus reality in the situation. And I was like really thankful to have somebody like Blaise be able to write and sort of tell that story.
Yeah, I think for me it was a little more subtle, but it definitely was a deliberate choice to feature Black and brown women. I think towards the end of my film, one of the mothers, Lauren, talks about really trying to just hold the space for our children, this safe space, despite all of these things happening. And I think there's just like so much of the weight of what's happening. And, I was reflecting on this the other day, but we were shooting, at a time between like, even before the election where there's just so much unknown. And, even the day of the like Capitol riot, I remember that was the day that our schools shut down and went back to virtual learning. So it was like the confluence of all these things happening together and the stress of not just taking care of your children and not, with all the uncertainty is also, the fear of the violence and all these things that are happening at the same time. I think in a more subtle way, I think is sort of portrayed in my film, but it was definitely something that was forefront in my mind. And I think I didn't want to make a film that was trying to do too many things, but was really just kind of showing like the impact that all of these stresses were having on us.
In Comida para los Pobres, there's a line from Giovanni that he says that food is like the power that could transform us. And for me, that's a very powerful statement. His work and the work of the organization is towards the hunger crisis in Puerto Rico, the food crisis in Puerto Rico, accessibility, and looking to food as a way to make a revolution in itself, to create like a different way of relate one another in the community. I think is very powerful and very revolutionary. So yes, even though we didn't show like the Black thing as a main thing, we are like all minorities. Our reality in Puerto Rico, economically, socially, and politically, is so complex, so complex that it permeates everything. And food, as a basic element of humankind, it's basic. And he's using food, or he's working towards food as a revolution for the community.
That's beautiful.
It's about equity, right? It's about equity, having equitable access again for everyone, and food is a big challenge.
It is.
Yes. It's crazy. I mean, it's in the forefront in some of your films, but like Kyoko, like it's just a little. In one of the scenes, they're just walking down the street, and there's these people talking. And New Orleans is a very interesting place for this to happen because people are never going to stop. But they're just talking about it. I go to the store, and everyone, the workers, are just talking about it constantly. So even if you're just trying to do something normal, or you're just trying to pick up your kid from school, or you're just trying, like, it's always going to be there in the background. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's a different reality. I mean, in that scene, it was remarkable to be able to, it wasn't intentional, we just happened to capture this audio, these white men talking about how masks are not really effective and they don't really need to wear masks. And I mean, I think that's the daily struggle, because it is impacting Black and brown people disproportionately, and I was just looking at a map of the United States. It's like it's really big. A lot of it is focused in the South right now, where we have this explosion of cases, and that is this battle that we're dealing with. It is a political and racial divide, that is really impacting Black and brown communities. So in New Orleans, we have a pretty high rate of vaccination in the city, but we're surrounded by counties that are, 20s, 30% vaccinated. So,
Wow.
yeah. It's real. And I mean, see, you know, it's just interesting that you bring up that scene because we're going into school year now. And I think as parents, we're all having that anxiety about like, are we going to be back where we were a year ago? You know, it's a daily struggle.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming and talking about your films and talking about the pandemic. I really appreciated it.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Mhm.